Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of r/ProRevenge. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, as well as make sure you got notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Homophobic parents made my life hell for 2 months, so I gave them a taste of their own medicine. Background: when I was 15, I had a father who we'll call Deadbeat Joe. Deadbeat Joe was the stereotypical deadbeat father, as he almost never contacted me of his own volition and resisted paying my mother child support whenever he could because he hated her as she left him and took his baby away from him. So he took it out on me. His words, not mine. My mother, being the saint she was, never talked bad about him and tried to endorse a relationship between us through my entire childhood. I did love Deadbeat Joe and would often want to spend time with him, but to no avail because he was always busy getting his dick wet with some rather questionable women. So I was basically forgotten about by him until the few occasions where he realized he remembered that he did have an older son. Because of that, I was raised by my mother and my stepfather, who I call Dad. They really loved and still do love me, and they worked their asses off to make sure I was well cared for and provided for. Unfortunately, me and my family had to move away to another state when I was 12, which meant that my parents ended up buying a house, which we moved into. Now, something to mention, up to this point, we were very poor, and my parents ended up buying a house after getting a great deal for it. However, the house was very poor quality, and my parents didn't know that, so we ended up basically getting scammed. My mother lost her job, and over time we ended up becoming so poor that we had to rely on food banks to supply us with the necessary food to survive. Luckily, or rather unluckily, Deadbeat Joe and his new wife, who we'll call Chris, said that they'd take me in and that they had a good, decent quality of life, which my parents bought because my mother didn't really think Deadbeat Joe was the type of guy who would lie about something so big despite my objections. I hated Deadbeat Joe by this point, and I went to go live with Deadbeat Joe and Chris plus their kids due to the fact that my real parents were about to lose our home at the time and they didn't want me to be homeless along with them. At first, they were very welcoming, but after a few weeks, things started to change. Both Chris and Deadbeat Joe had lied, and they were just as poor as my parents were. Over time, Chris had started to show the volatile side of herself, and Deadbeat Joe found out I was gay, which was a problem due to the fact that he was very Christian. They both really hated how I was LGBT, despite claiming otherwise, as Deadbeat Joe felt that I needed mental help, as he felt that being gay was an illness. They tried to force me to conform to their beliefs that being gay was wrong, but I refused, which made them very angry. Chris also ended up just being horrible and manipulative to me on a regular basis, as she would do things like set up a schedule for the time for us kids to do certain things, but then refuse to let me go to school for no good reason. Threatened to isolate me from her entire family if I didn't do what she wanted me to, etc. Due to all of this, it caused me lots of stress and anxiety over the 2 months I stayed there, and I would cry a lot in the corner of my room, wishing that the fuses that kept breaking would set the house on fire and take me with it. It built up a lot of anger and resentment within me, and all of the things that Chris and Deadbeat Joe would do and say to me. After a while, the hostility in the house built up, and I would eventually be accused of being a pedophile who wanted to do very bad things to my brothers because Chris said that someone looked up CP on her cell phone. Deadbeat Joe ended up taking away my phone and threatening me with knives, which culminated to me taking my phone back and running away to hide in the bushes outside of the trailer park that we lived in. The cops came, my parents manipulated the situation to make it seem like I was a terrible child, and they left. The next week was living hell afterwards, as Chris and Deadbeat Joe kept trying to get a confession out of me and kept threatening me, but I held my ground and was able to leave their house and move back in with my parents. By this point, I was seething with rage, but I didn't do anything to them as I wanted to move on. However, a month after I left their house, I remembered the smug face Chris made through the week. She kept me prisoner in her house and kept trying to ruin my life. I decided that I hated her too much to not retaliate against her and her husband, so that's what I ended up doing. The Revenge! I decided that I would sign Chris up for all the spam and junk mail I could find using the information I could find online and on the school directory of the school she worked at. Looking to hear the sacred word of Scientology? Click. Want to hear about shitty projects that'll fall apart after one use? Click. Want to see some hot, sexy women get it on with each other? Click, click, click. Next, I decided to send Chris's family some recordings I took of some of the things she would say to me. During my stay at Chris's house, I had recorded the things she was saying, so I had evidence to show my parents that she was abusing me. I ended up sending those recordings to all of her close friends and family before blocking them. They were very bad, so it wouldn't have surprised me if some of them ended up distancing themselves from her after listening to it. Lastly, I decided that I would continue to make Deadbeat Joe pay my mother what he owed her in child support. I was originally going to ask my real dad to adopt me, but after learning of how much money Deadbeat Joe had to send my mother, around $1,200 per month, I did the math and concluded out of spite that I would let my mother keep on milking him for what he was worth until I turned 18. It's going to be quite a bit of time before I become an adult too, as I'm currently 16, so by the time I've turned 18, DJ will legally have to pay my mother $25,000 over the next few years of my life, which definitely is not something to sniff at. Resolution. I never heard back from my evil parents after I carried out my revenge against them, so I don't really know how their immediate reaction towards what I've done is. However, after going back to the school directory to see if any changes were made, I discovered that almost all of the teachers' info was scrubbed from the site and my stepmother's name was nowhere to be found. I connected the dots and it made me realize I had caused an entire site-wide change, and the reason why I'd never heard back from my abusive parents was because of how badly I humiliated Chris, and I knew that Chris would have flogged Deadbeat Joe if he dared try to talk to me again. After realizing this, I laughed so hard I almost pissed myself, and I left the school's website. Currently, I'm studying for an exam that will earn me certification in the aspect of designing, which is important for the field I want to get into. I'm taking my education seriously, and now I have opportunities that I wouldn't have been able to afford if I had stayed at Chris's house. I've made some new friends, and I've now moved on from the things that my parents did to me. TLDR, evil, homophobic, bio-dad, and stepmother make my life a living hell for 2 months. I enact my revenge, and they have to pay my real parents $25,000 over the next 2 years of my life, and have gotten outed as abusers to their family and friends. Trying to take me home? Better make sure I am who you think. Unsure if this counts as pro-revenge, but I like to think so on behalf of catcalling victims everywhere. Alright, so to understand the story, you have to understand a few things about me. I'm a 19-year-old guy, bisexual with a boyfriend. I'm often told I have a very feminine body. I've posted in the femboy sub here and there with positive response. But this is a throwaway and I'm not going to link anything for privacy reasons. I was out on a date a few weeks ago with my boyfriend, who I'll refer to as Alex, 20. For storytelling's sake, I'll go by Liam. We had just finished a movie date and decided to roam the dark streets of nightly NYC afterwards, just to chat and spend time together, as we don't live together. It's important to note that I was dressed up like a girl. I'm talking a crop top and a skirt, plus some thigh highs. Come for me all you want, I like to feel pretty, LMAO. I was waiting outside the convenience store while Alex grabbed some snacks and a tall man, early 20s, dressed like your local dealer, walked up to me and tried to act sexy. I'll refer to him as Creep.
What's up, baby? You know you shouldn't be out here so late all alone.
I said nothing.
Now come on, baby. When a man speaks to you, you respond. How about we go back to my place?
Now here's something I haven't mentioned before. I have a highish pitched voice. Still masculine, but high enough to where if I try, I can muster up a good female voice. So I do.
No, not interested.
Come on, I don't bite. I just want to have a little fun.
He got closer. I shook my head. At this point, Alex comes out with a bag of our snacks and notices the scene. Everything all right, babe?
Babe, you with this loser? Come on, let me show you what a real man can do for you.
He put his hand on my hip. Alex started to walk forward, but I signaled for him to stay back. I had a plan. I put my hand on Creeps, then wrapped his arm around me and cuddled into his chest. He smelled like cigarettes, disappointed parents, and failed dreams. I looked up at him, still in my girl voice.
Oh, him? Don't mind him, if you want me.
Then I switched to my normal voice. Then you can have me. Immediately, he pushed me back into Alex's arms and storms off, yelling obscenities mixed with a few homophobic slurs here and there, plus some transphobia tossed in just for good measure. Me and Alex both go into hysterical laughter, nearly falling over each other, and once we calm down, he looks to me. You're really an asshole. You gotta stop doing that to guys. He chuckled.
Hey, they all approached me.
And there you have it, folks. The end of the epics. If you like today's stories, make sure you leave a like on the video as well as subscribe with notifications turned on. That way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.